Hello, welcome to my channel. My name is Glacia and I'm an intuitive life coach, health coach, and I'm an Ascension guide. So I'm really happy you're here. I haven't been here for a while. I will be making a video about what I have been up to and what I've been facing while I've been absent. And I'm just happy to be back with you here. So this is an update for August 2024, but it's really relevant for more than August. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what we've been going through. We're in a process of healing trauma. So a lot of people are healing trauma, and we have to do this right now because we're shifting grids, right? So the old grid is what we call it, or I like to call it, and that is the inverted grid system. That's an energy and life force harvesting system built on domination and control tactics. Okay, now it's an overlay of holographic inserts and things like that, right? Now, the true living light grid is coming online for all of us. We're starting to integrate into that and rise into that, which is our natural grid. And when we're in that grid, the light responds to us in a way that it's constantly in a dance with us, right? We have a thought, we have a feeling, it starts responding and reacting, right? So it's like this co-creation with energy in this new grid. Now, if you have a ton of trauma in your system, you create through the sum total of your entire energy body. So that's all the trauma, that's all the beliefs, that's all the points of view, that's all the trapped things like the fear and different emotions that get stuck in the different energy centers of the body or along the spine. And many of us would start recreating these situations that we're actually wrapping up right now. We're having to face all this tough stuff, right? All this stuff is coming up to the surface. If we didn't face it, we literally would bring that into our new higher timelines and start running with that and create a life out of it. So we would powerfully create exactly what we don't want. That's why we have to face it now, because we're shifting into this multidimensional expression that allows us to recognize our ability as creators. It allows us to recognize that we each send energy out there and the energy responds, right? There's no separation. That's why it's called the unity grid. You recognize the world is responding to every thought, feeling, emotion that you have, right? And this is the same for everybody. So this is how we're co-creating, and this is how we shift the entire collective too, because we start integrating these changes in ourselves, then we release them out there with others, and others reflect with us, and then we help each other level up, right? So I have a list here, and it's not in any particular order. It's just a lot of important points that I wrote down. Right now, when there's a lot of people going into heavy situations, facing some of the most difficult times in their life, there's a lot of fear. There's a lot of anger coming up too in people's bodies as the body purges these heavy, dense pockets of dense light, or dead light, if you will. And so what we all need to do is recognize that people are really going through it, and to be gentle with yourself, be gentle with others, and then radiate that love and light as much as you possibly can. So if somebody comes at you, you don't have to respond with the same energy. You can respond with something different. You know how they say fight fire with fire, right? That's just more fire. If you fight fire with water, the water puts the fire out. That's what I'm asking you to do, to neutralize tense situations, right? By recognizing you're in a tense situation that triggers you because you have something in you that's not the ultimate truth. So when you get triggered, it's because you hit a lie inside you. You've hit a belief that is not true. But you believe it to be true, right? So it's limiting your reality. So you hit a limiting belief. That's what a trigger is. Most people don't understand this, and so they lash out at the other person, thus creating more of the same situation. It'll just keep happening over and over and over because what you put out there comes back. So if you respond with the same energy, you're never getting out of that cycle. So somebody has to bring in a new energy, and then it alters the energetics of the situation, and that's progress, right? So you can bring in a lower energy, a higher energy. It depends on what you are committed to and what you would like to really see come out of the situation. I really want peace. I want peace and connection with others. So responding to people in that way, even if they're rude to me, and not taking it personal, because it's not personal. If somebody's mean to you or rude to you, it's not you, it's them. They're the ones willing to act that way. Hurt people. It's just a fact, but healed people help heal people too. It's also a fact. So back to this update. Now, we're in one of the most intense activations. Not everybody's in this. Not everybody's ready. Not everybody's coded the same, okay? I just want to clear that up, because not everybody's going to have the same ascension symptoms. Take what resonates, leave what doesn't. This might resonate later. So we've got the activation of what my higher self called the Swan Codes. And I don't know that they're technically called the Swan Codes, okay? Just saying that's how my higher self presented it to me, and I believe this is why. The swan is really the ugly duckling, right? It's the unique one. It's the different one that stands out. It's the one that gets outcast because it's unique and different. It's often the one that brings in new information, the one that helps the progress, right? Now, in the story of the ugly duckling, the swan figures out that it's not one of those. It's with those and can be with those, and there's nothing wrong with either. Everything has its place, but that it actually has its place too. Now, for all the indigos and starseeds and love workers, light workers that have been really wanting to just express their heart and connect with each other, that's what this activation is. It's activating your authenticity and your desire to be in service in your unique, authentic way, or to truly live your path, right? So many of us distract ourselves with other people's paths and stuff. But anyways, so this, or we limit ourselves by playing small. But this is celebrating your uniqueness and being authentic. So being authentic can be very challenging because it can be rejected, right? None of us want to be rejected. But what this activation is, and it's an activation within the energy body, but it's within the energy of each cell. And it's shifting from a polarized, repelling magnetic force. You know how magnets can come together or they can push apart, they can repel. So we've been in kind of a repelling, like staying bipolar, polarized beings, right? And now we're coming into the unity grid. So the old grid is like a bipolar grid, right? The unity grid is not bipolar. It's tri. And so it's got 3 parts. And with the 3 different parts, you've got better balance, right? So you think about the mind, the conscious, subconscious, superconscious. There's the 3. There's 3s in a lot of things, right? The mother, the father, the child. The thought, feeling, manifestation, right? So when you bring in the 3s, you start having balance. So with the reversal in the energetics, the unity grid, we start coming together. So we want to come together and we want to acknowledge that I offer something unique, and that's wonderful. And you offer something unique, and that's wonderful. And they offer something unique, and that's wonderful. Instead of comparing, like, oh, mine's better than yours, because we're all unique. And once we really embrace that we're all aspects of this beautiful source energy, we can really understand that we each have a unique role to play. I can say a role or a unique experience to live out. And it's time to step into that. So no more cookie cutter trying to be like everybody else and just fit in and do it their way. Okay, that's not. Well, for some people, they're going to keep doing that. But for a lot of you, you feel this activation. I'm sure you're resonating with this if you're one of the people, right? So that has to do with the codes in the energetics being turned to magnetic attraction, unity. But to get through this, Now, when you're shifting like we are, you really have to be willing to let go of a lot of the things that are in your life. You can't simultaneously be your old self who you're trying to grow out of and be this person that you're growing, that you want to be. You can't be your old self and new self at the same time. And I get it. It's not just a switch. It's a transition, right? But it's time to really make that transition now. So that's what I have to say about that. So many of you are feeling tired and drained. There's a lot happening in the physical body. Now, when you're operating, so beyond just the physical things, like make sure you have cellular metabolic function, that's up. Take some Epsom salt baths and bath bomb baths and things like that. I can go into that later of how to heal with balneotherapy. But anyways, feeling tired and drained, it can have to do with when you rise up in frequency, you're holding energy that's moving a lot faster, right? And if you think about that and kind of equate it to something like you're carrying heavier weights, and it's harder for you to carry those heavier weights, like a 50-pound weight versus like a 1-pound weight, right? So that's where you're noticing you can feel really tired around other people because you're running such faster and higher energies, and then you come into contact with them, theirs are slower and more dense, and you get slowed down by theirs. Okay, so who you are around right now really matters. And if you're feeling vulnerable, that's not the time to be around people who are not really centered. Because when you're vulnerable, and so vulnerable, I mean if you're sick, if you've been doing drugs, drinking alcohol, eating bad food, if you've got holes in your aura, right, or your biofield, whatever you like to call it. If you're in those states of being, that's not the time to be out in public. That's the time to go home and build your spiritual life force, which you do through sleep. So when you sleep, or meditation, or breath practices, or sometimes eating foods with bioactive and biogenic properties to them, you can gain life force. Otherwise, you're just spending it. And we want to preserve our life force right now, always, really, and treat the body as a sacred temple. So feeling tired and drained can have to do with that. You're really leveling up and you're holding more of this charge, this bigger charge. But the beautiful thing about it is you also have a bigger influence in the field around you. So people come into that field, and yes, you may get a little more drained, but they may get activations and start to shift, right? So it's kind of that ripple effect, or that concentric circle. If you've ever watched like a mud puddle when it's raining, you just see all these little rings. So think of it kind of like that. We're starting to activate, and other people are just activating all over, because we're really, we're doing this. So, and I know it looks kind of crazy out there in the world. And so that's why I want to reassure you, like, we have to go through these heavy things in order to reach the next level. It's just part of the process, right? Like a rite of passage in a way. Okay, so now, some of you, and this may or may not be for everybody, I just put out a whole series on locals on this stuff, but many people are noticing that people come at them sideways, right? So if you have people in your life that you're noticing, like friends turn on you, or people come in and they seem so wonderful and then they do these things to you that hurt you, or, someone seems to be great and then they turn out to be a narcissist, or, whatever it may be. But when people have not done sovereignty work, they're very susceptible to mind control, and most often have soul contracts saying that it's okay to do that to them, right? Which is why spiritual contract revocation is really important. Side note, I have a class, you can get it through my website, on clearing spiritual contracts. Anyways, the dark forces, or the evil controlling entities, whatever you want to call them, they are what they are, but they are using people who are very traumatized, or who aren't sovereign, to get to the people who are really pushing in their ascension process. And it's a way to distract and derail and make you feel like you're all alone. make you feel like you can't trust anybody, because right now we're trying to shift to unity. So their greatest move is to try to create separation. Do not fall for the divide and conquer strategies that are happening on the planet right now. Okay, anything that is the whole divide and conquer. And I'm not saying that everything has to be the same. No, unity doesn't mean that. Some people get confused when I say we're all one and we're unified. They think I'm talking about, like drones, and that's not what I'm talking about. But anyways, the controlled opposition is really huge as well right now. So the attempts to prevent the ascension process is gigantic. And unfortunately, a lot of the false ascension guides are really propped up and pushed out there in front of everybody, like the false mainstream media stuff is, right? That's the controlled opposition. And then the real ascension guides are shadow banned and attacked, and all kinds of things happen in their lives out of nowhere, like appearingly random stuff. That prevent them from really engaging or prevent them from wanting to, So there's a really huge move against the true ascension guides right now. And that's like deleting their pages, not showing their videos, attacking them, pulling them into arguments, or just things like that, right? Publicly denouncing them. If you see people publicly denouncing other people specifically, for me, I turn and burn. I'm like, no way am I gonna have somebody like bash another person. That's not unity, and that's not even compassionate. That's actually very dirty, dark dealings that I want nothing to do with. So you do what you want, but use great discernment when following people that want to call other people out, because it's called character assassination, and it's one of the tactics that the dark use against the light workers. So, or against the people anchoring light, right? We're all light workers. Every single one of us is a light worker. We're all human beings, hue meaning light. Many of you are starting to recognize when somebody is BSing you. You can just see it crystal clear. You can tell that they're not being authentic, and it's very off-putting, definitely. But this is one of the activations that has to take place, and every single person in the ascension process will get this activation at some point. And then the discernment allows you to know when you're being misled, and our bodies tell us too. You can kind of feel it when somebody's lying or when they're attempting to manipulate you. It just feels really gross, right? But some people can't. They can't tell if they're being lied to yet. But these activations that are taking place are the ones that are bringing in all the authenticity and stuff, right? That is helping each of us have greater levels of discernment, which is beautiful. Because the consciousness traps rely on you trusting that what you're seeing is truth, okay? And you can't necessarily do that, okay? With deep fakes and AI being able to replicate voices, you really have to have discernment right now. That's actually like a superpower, really. And your ability to focus without getting distracted or losing your thought process every 2 seconds is as well. So staying in integrity. Integrity is when you do the right thing even if nobody's looking. And the truth is, you're always being watched. All the time. 24/7, 365, always. Because this is one level, this is a physical level of reality. And I'm not talking about watched by surveillance. Yes, probably that too. If you have a cell phone, you are. But realistically, like, if you think about it, there are different levels of reality, and different beings are on different levels of reality, but can witness this one. So there's nothing that you can get away with. Everything is shown. There's a record of every thought, every deed, every action, every choice that you have, okay? It's recorded in light codes. So knowing that, be at your best, right? That's integrity. Choosing to be at your best just because that's who you want to be. That creates natural spiritual protection. So when you honor your words, when you're direct and truthful, when you're respectful, when you follow through, you start to build natural spiritual immunity. So that's one of the things you can do to fortify your spiritual body, is to really mean what you say. Be careful with your words. And if you're talking about the past and you're feeling about the past too, which is usually something that we don't like, oh, they did this to me, they did that, and blah, 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 right? Well, when thoughts and feelings together, that's the energy of creation. So you got to stop going into the past and referencing it and talking about it again. Yeah, it's one thing to vent about it once and be heard and get it off your chest, right? It's another to tell 50 different people about it, and 5 years later, you're still telling the same story, okay? That's you choosing to live in the past, but making it relevant every day, and then really blowing it in the present moment, because you don't want to live your past, you want new experiences. So many people are finally coming into their power too. But, okay, so this is really big. A lot of us took a really big dip for a bit, 2020 hit and things got kind of crazy, but that really activated a lot of the spiritual work and purging that had to be done. And so people took a dip, and a lot of the healers and the Ascension guides and all of that actually went into kind of more of a background, like observing rather than throwing themselves out there, because if you did, you got attacked massively in every area of life. But now coming into our power to step back into our role. So if you think about the hero's journey, the hero gets one part of it, they get what they want and they're thriving, and then they lose it all. That's what a bunch of us just went through. And then next is building it in a way that's sustainable, that's lasting. So that's stepping into your true power, right? So learning to love yourself is going to be a cycle that people really have to go through, because many of us, we want to receive love, we want to love others, but then we become avoidant or codependent, or different things happen because we don't have that relationship with ourselves yet. And I know it's cliche, right? Love yourself first. But these activations are helping us recognize, you know what? Yeah, I'm unique, but I'm lovable. I'm unique, and I do things that other people don't. And so does everybody, right? So, but it doesn't mean that I'm not lovable, right? And so that's really where a lot of people are recognizing, like, actually, I am good, because a lot of us, especially the people who've been beat down lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, like the indigos, right? And starseeds, and they've just been worked over. And so anyone who's been abused by a narcissist can relate to this. You just lose your sense of self-worth. You lose your sense of self even, right? And then you start to kind of go into this diminished state of being. You lose your power, essentially. You become disempowered. And that happened to a lot of us, and now we're coming back into our power. But facing these heavy traumas and really facing our shadows too, because it's not fun to look at the parts of yourself that you try to avoid. So it does, for many, feel like life is falling apart, the world's falling apart. And many of you might say, why bother, right? This is a transition. It's just a transition. The old ways, an old grid, the inverted grid, that was the energy harvesting one, is falling apart. So your identity that you were scripted to have in that one, naturally that has to unravel. It's not you. It never really was you. It was you with all these overlays and implants and tags and trackers and all of that stuff, right? Now you get to be you. And who you are is lovable. Who you are is authentic and unique in your own, when you're being really you, right? And so this is what we get to start having with each other, and how exciting, The reason that we love a lot of these people who are authentic is because it gives us this feeling that it's okay to be ourselves too, So that's coming up to, let's see, giving up. Many feel like giving up, and many have felt like giving up. When you get to a point where you're like, that's it, I'm done. I quit. Really celebrate those moments, because that is you actually taking an old part of yourself that's outdated and just letting it go. Because you're going to keep going. You're not really done. You're going to keep going. But that part of you that feels like you're done, I'm just not doing this anymore, that's really that old part of you that you're like, okay, I'm done. That's not who I am. And then because that old part of you is dropping away, that new part of you is born. So as the old drops away, the new is birthed. And this keeps happening over and over and over. We're in a series of rebirths, not just one. So you may feel this multiple times, right? And it's intense, not that fun. Now, when there's dark, you bring the light. That's it. When things feel heavy, focus on your heart, start building that light. It's within you. Everything is within you. You don't have to source anything outside of you. At the energetic level, I mean. And like with light, if you just start intending that light start emanating from your heart, it does. I have a light workers course too, and I'll teach you all this stuff in. But anyways, I want to wrap this up here. I tried to make short videos, but getting comfortable. So there's a transition in these activations. Being comfortable, knowing that you don't know. That's really funny to me. But being comfortable that you don't know, because really, when you need to know, there's a desire. One of the greatest things I see on YouTube is people want to know the future, right? Well, you're creating the future. So if you listen to somebody else's projection about your future, you could potentially create that where you wouldn't have before. Just saying. So, and part of that need to know about the future is the attachment to linear thinking and linear living, right? But time is actually not really linear. It's a circle. So I'm not going to go into that too much right now. But when you are a creator being, you recognize that you don't need to know your future, because what you're doing right now is going to be in your future. You already know it because you're doing it. You're creating it, right? So many of us want to know the future because we want to know, do I get what I want? Is what I want, is this thing that I'm doing here on this planet still worth doing it? Do I get to have what I want? But you get to have what you want when you are clear and able to focus in a way that brings it about. And this is the power that we're starting to step into, and the awareness of what we are as these beings. So, last thing I want to say here is, if you've had, like, back to the activations, if you've had a lot of people, or controlled opposition and activations, turning on you, right? People just out of the blue being like, I don't like you anymore, or, just being not supportive, not caring, and choosing kind of that separation. Know this. People have to go away from each other if they are repelling, right? So if you don't have the activations to be in unity with each other, you're still going to come into conflict and repel, right? And so the lesson in that is to see what you are doing that's creating this repelling, right? And sometimes it's not necessarily what you're doing, it's how you handle the situation is the growth for you. And there's always growth for both parties too. It's never a one-way street. Symbiotic. The new grid is symbiosis. It's a symbiotic grid. So anyways, this is what I have for you here today. And if you haven't followed me on Instagram, I do post updates over there, and I'm also on Locals. But I wanted to let you know I have a membership here on YouTube as well, if you'd like to sign up for it. And there's guided meditations, spiritual contract revocations, and a lot more updates. And you get the updates early. The general ones that go out on the general channel also you'll get them early, and you'll get a lot of exclusive content here too. Anyways, think about signing up for that. And one last thing I want to tell you is that I got another certification in spinal flow technique. And so I'm starting to do that, and I will be at Cascade Equinox Festival in Redmond, Oregon, doing the work. So if you're in the area and you're going to that festival and you want to get a hands-on session with me, please do come see me. All right, family, thanks for being here. I love you. Thank you for staying with me, and I can't wait to share what I've been going through with you, and have a wonderful day. Much love.